Soviet invasion of Afghanistan took place in 1979, marked the beginning of a 10-year conflict that had profound impact on the global politics and it claimed countless peoples in Afghanistan. In the late 1970s, Afghanistan was a country in turmoil. The power struggle was underway, and in 1978, the Saur Revolution had begun. It involved approximately around 2,000 military personnel to overthrow the Republic of Afghanistan's president Mohammad Daoud Khan. By the People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan was established as a socialist party in Afghanistan. The new president of Afghanistan was Noor Mohammad Taraki and the prime minister was Hafizullah Amin. Taraki was a controversial leader in Afghanistan because he had a more secular mindset. He came up with some educational reforms and marriage reforms which angered the more religious conservative Afghani people of the countryside. They started a rebellion against Taraki and his government. Taraki's men had little to no hold in the Afghan countryside. On October 1979, Noor Muhammad Taraki was assassinated, and Hafizullah Amin became the new president. He tried to reverse the reforms made by Taraki, but it was too little too late. Now the Soviet Union had begun to think that after the death of Taraki, they thought that Hafizullah Amin is a more weak and volatile leader. He shouldn't be even ruling Afghanistan. So the Soviet premier at that time, Leonid Brezhnev, and his generals came up with a meeting and tried to assassinate Hafizullah Amin. At the first attempt, they tried to poison Hafizullah Amin, but they failed. So the Soviet leadership came up with a covert operation known as Operation Storm 333, one of the biggest betrayals in human history. The military operation conducted by the Soviet Special Forces, namely the KGB and the GRU forces, was a special op in Afghanistan on the 27th of December 1979. The operation was part of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan that was aimed to overthrow the Afghan government and installing a more pro-Soviet regime. Soviet Union easily marched their troops into Afghanistan because Hafizullah Amin thought that they came to his aid, but he was still dreaming. The Soviet leadership advised Hafizullah Amin to shift to the Taj Bagh Palace instead of the presidential palace because there were two reasons. One, the presidential palace was located in central Kabul, and attacking there would be really hard. And the Taj Bagh Palace was more outside of the city and it was isolated. So the operation involved a small unit of special forces and they also had BMPs and other equipment. The Soviets had again poisoned Hafizullah Amin, but this time it was successful and Hafizullah Amin and his family went to a coma. Now, the initial plan of the Soviets was to storm the palace at 10:30 p.m., but due to some implications, they started their operation earlier than expected, around 7:30 p.m. The Soviets easily went inside the palace and they killed Hafizullah Amin with a grenade. This operation sparked the Soviet intervention in Afghanistan. After the death of Hafizul Amin, Babrak Karmal became the new president of Afghanistan, and he was heavily backed by the Soviets. Now, Hafizullah Amin's death sparked anger into even his enemies in the countryside because they hated, even though they hated Hafizullah Amin, but they still didn't recognize that a foreign invader had come to their lands. So the Afghan Mujahideen was successful in uniting all of the Afghan warlords into the fight against the Soviets. After the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, the US and other NATO countries started to fund the Afghan Mujahideen with sophisticated weapons through Pakistan. Pakistan was a key role in the Mujahideen's fight against the Soviet Union. The Soviets at that time relied heavily on attack helicopters, and after the arrival of the Stinger missiles in Afghanistan, it was practically game over for the Soviets. On 15th of February 1989, the Soviets finally withdrew from Afghanistan under the leadership of Colonel General Boris Karomov.